Hey, GI, I sent you a message on Teams.
Well, welcome, ladies. And gentlemen. Uh, Good afternoon. Good morning, I guess. My name is Michelle Gardner Ince, and I'm so honored to be here with you today to celebrate the 75th anniversary of women being integrated into the military. Before we get started, I do want to uh, just thank you, one, for coming, encourage you to put some items in the chat that tell us about who you are, where you're located, uh, what you're grateful for, and what are your greatest strengths, because this is an opportunity to network. And so as well, if you know some folks who would love to be here and are not here, please feel free to send this invite to them. So we're here today to celebrate the Women's Armed Forces Integration Act of 1948. It marked a significant milestone by granting women the right to serve as regular permanent members of the armed forces. Before that, it was WACs, for the Army, Army Air Corps, WAFs, Women Air Force Corps, and WAVES, Women Navy Corps. And so this particular act integrated women into the service with the rest of I call it compadres or comrades. Despite the restrictions that were in place prior to the act, this act officially recognized the contributions of women to the armed services, to this nation, and helped pave the way for recognition and support of women veterans in various sectors, including entrepreneurship and business ownership. Women have transitioned into civilian life and has realized the importance of being an entrepreneur and understand that being a CEO empowers them not only to increase their individual wealth, but to impact the community and to create opportunities for other veterans and other members. And so that is why we're here to celebrate and want to encourage you again to celebrate, tell what your military service is as well in the chat, and thank you for joining. Next, I just want to cover a little bit of, if you go to the next slide, please. I do want to tell you that we are blessed to have an all-female leadership team within the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization. Ms. Sharon Ridley is our executive director, and Ms. Kimberly Osborne is our deputy executive director. And if you don't understand anything, you know, the federal government is the largest buyer of services in the world, and VA spends about $34.6 billion annually on an average. And really, our office is about enabling veterans to gain access to government opportunities. We protect small business concerns. And so we are here to help you, and we are honored that our leadership is supportive of this event. Next slide. So here's our agenda today. I've kind of already gone through the welcome. There is a poll that will come up. We ask you to fill that poll out. We want to develop programs and different opportunities based on your responses. And we think that women veteran entrepreneurs deserve their own individual space. And so that's why we want you to fill out the poll. There'll be a poll now, and then there'll be another poll near the end. So please stay with us the full hour because it is going to be exciting. This session is being recorded, will be available later on the OSDBU YouTube channel. But now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Women Veteran-Owned Small Business Initiative, and then we'll go into our amazing guest fireside chat. And then again, you'll have an opportunity to have some questions answered or just some comments. Please put those in the chat. And then now let's go ahead and get going. Next slide. So here's me. I spent 27 years in the United States Air Force. I've never been without a military ID card. I'm a military brat, a military wife, and of course, a military veteran. It has been my distinct honor to serve military members and their families my entire adult career. And I want to tell you, but this is one of the most important and impactful things I've done despite what I did in the military. The Women Veteran-Owned Small Business Initiative started about 4 years ago, and all because we are seeking to improve our women-owned small business goal success, as well as we want to empower the fastest growing demographic in the veteran community, women-owned businesses, to not only have access to opportunities, but learning opportunities. We do a lot of partnering, teaming with nonprofits and collaborate with nonprofits, and we encourage women to support each other through collaborating, partnering, teaming, mentoring, etc. So these are some of the things we've done. We've got a website. We hope that you'll follow us. We've had a women-owned small business summit. We've had boot camps. We have several programs, Vet Biz Lady Start, which is really more for younger companies. And then the boot camp is for mature companies. We've had a tremendous success. You see 3 ladies down there at the bottom of the screen. They are in the Vet 100 fastest growing veteran-owned businesses in the country, as well as Inc. 5000, and they made that list not only in the year 2021, but 2022. And our success doesn't stop there. Guess what? It starts with you. Next slide. And so here's an opportunity for you to join us, right? You have an opportunity to be empowered, educated, and enabled through 2 programs that we're running. One is a monthly program. The 4th Wednesday of every month, 2 to 4, we give some sort of government contracting education. You have the opportunity to get follow-on counseling from one of the women business centers, whether it's DC, Maryland, Virginia, or Alabama, and it doesn't matter where you're located. You can scan that QR code right there and also find out more, and that leads to our website. And then weekly, hey, if you just want to join in with us weekly, get your questions answered. And this is a safe space, right? It's not recorded. There are women who are more mature in their journey, those just starting out. We bring in guest speakers. This month is all about client relationships. How do you find the right client? How do you engage the right client? How do you hone your value proposition for the client? So join us every Tuesday from 12 noon to 1 o'clock. And then sometimes we go further and have some networking breakout sessions. Next slide. So it is my pleasure. The reason you all came here today is to celebrate two women who have exemplified what a great transition looks like, whether it's transition from the military or transition from corporate into entrepreneurship. We are here with the leadership of First Nations Group, LLC. And first, I would like to introduce Cheryl. Next slide. Cheryl Nielsen, she's a U.S. Air Force veteran. She has spent 23 years in. She's a remarkable woman whose journey has encompassed the worlds of veteran entrepreneurship and service. With over 45 years of experience, not only in the military, but in the federal and defense government industry. Her role as CEO of First Nation has been instrumental in its growth. She is a lawyer and a CPA and a management and a CEO, and she was in the Air Force. Talk about tremendous. Her leadership has set the tone and is a model for other companies to emulate. Her dedication to giving back led to the establishment of First Nation Group, where their mission is as a leading medical surge distributor to the VA, as well as not just delivering products, but also she has two sons in the military, and their commitment to the veteran community is endless. Today, we celebrate her achievements and her spirit in honoring the 75th anniversary of women's integration into the military, and she's an example of an amazing transition. Next slide. Wendy Tomilio. Let me tell you something. When you get two amazing women together, unstoppable, their success is no surprise. Today, we want to honor the exceptional achievements of the spirit of women and excellence. And Wendy Tomilio is an extraordinary leader with 25 years of experience in clinical services, sales management, and business growth. As the executive vice president of First Nations Group, she's played a vital role in propelling the company's growth while championing their mission to assist veterans and underserved communities. Her strategic acumen, commitment to excellence, and contributions to charitable endeavors have made her a true inspiration. Let us celebrate Wendy and Cheryl, and welcome, ladies.
Good morning, and thanks for having us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Good morning. Let's see. Am I in video? Let's see.
Right now, I see our room. I don't see. Oh, I see you there. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited. I have been a big fan for many years. Pre-COVID, I had the opportunity to meet with Wendy and Cheryl in DC in person. You know, go figure that. Now we cherish the opportunity to do those rare things. But I'm so glad. But since then, I have been following them, seeing their success. They're one of the top federal companies, woman veteran-owned companies in the federal government. And so, you know, I'd like to hear, how did this all start? You know, who is Nation Group? Cheryl?
So first of all, Michelle, thanks for having us, and thanks to everyone who's participating with us. And at first, when you said you were going to tape this, I thought, oh, I don't know. But now I'm going to re-listen to the beginning of the tape every day I'm having a bad day. I'm going to remind myself of all those nice things you said about both of us. So thank you for that introduction. And also the celebration of the 75th anniversary of the integration of women. I hadn't really even thought about it too much until you really just articulated it. And really the opportunity for me to serve, it probably never would have crossed my mind unless it had been kind of publicized back in the late 70s, and really were the best, as most of us will attest, those best days of our life. And we try to capture those as we transition into something else. So this really is a great celebration, I think, for all the women who had the opportunity to serve, and that those who will be serving in the future. And maybe for some, this is a recruiting video, since it's a great opportunity. So I'll start on the birth of First Nation group. It arose actually for me. It was a combination of hope and a vision. I had already served in the military, and I had already served in industry as a general counsel for a couple different companies. And I'm in my late 50s, early 60s, and I am really looking for now what's next. And for those of you who have never read this book, there are always books and people who adjust and change your life. Mine was Success to Significance. And here we are. You've had this really fabulous career, particularly in the military, where you're thinking, okay, now what? And what is, and how do we, it's always transitioning. And so that was written by Bob Buford in the 80s. It's an old book, but it's, timeless. And he had a couple of principles there. It's called Halftime. Actually, it's not called Success to Significance, it's called Halftime. And the byline is Success to Significance. And halftime is you're in your transition, just like you would be in a football game, any sport. You're at halftime and you're reflecting on what you did, and you're trying to figure out how best to do the second half. And one of the things his premises is the second half is going to be so much better than the first. And for those of us who had already a fabulous first half, you're trying to figure out how could that possibly be. Well, for me, and Wendy can attest, and for us, First Nation group has been that. And it is, and the other premise he has is, to make a contribution, to be significant in the second half. You don't have to be a missionary or, so you take the talents that you have developed and God's given you and your first half have developed, and then use those. So in the military, you get to know government, how, and I was in contracts. I was a government contracts girl, a lawyer. And so I knew how the business part of the military worked, and thought, well, how do I leverage that into something of significance? And that's the birth of First Nation, this vision of having, in those days, it was, 10, 12 years ago, it was kind of a social enterprise, using the government business, the business in the government to then launch, for philanthropic purposes. So, in our terms back then, instead of doing a bake sale to earn money to give to you, we would run business, and this is for sure. So that's how. I had a little tiny company, but then what happened is a blend of vision with my partner, who had the Jordan Reese at the time. We merged those two, the capability of Jordan Reese's, which really, you got to have capability to have anything to sell to the government, with the vision. And so now 8 years later, that's where we are. So our mission is we have our kind of byline, and that's serving Veterans First. And there's a period in between each of those words, and they mean a lot to us. And the service that we talk about in First Nation Group is service to each other, service to each other's families. I mean, and then service to our for-profit company, which we happen to be almost 90% in the VA, which serves, it's a kind of our business side is very well aligned with our philanthropic side.
Wow.
So serving, and then veterans, because we build our philanthropic goals around where we're earning, and it's primarily in the VA. And so our focus on the profit side and for-profit side is veterans, but we have, and I'll explain that in a minute, and then first. And we don't like to be second in anything. We like to have, we call it the little engine that could. We're 90 people, and we just keep chugging along and hope to be the best, and, you know, very high standards. And so that's the first, and the periods in between are the combination of the stop and think, and also the transition to the next. So we have, our mission is serving veterans, and we've extended that to active duty members and their families, and the underserved where we live and work. And so to do that, and we probably will get into that maybe a little later on how we kind of integrate those. But that's First Nation Group as conceived, and the best part of it is that's how we're practicing today.
That's amazing. So amazing. You know, so when I think about, you know, the story that you shared, you know, I'd like to, you know, to hear, you know, considering that you all are, you know, female led, you know, what are some of the unique business challenges, Wendy, that, you know, may face female led businesses? Because, you know, no matter how successful you've been before, and I know this, I was in business for myself before I came to BA, entrepreneurship is a little different. Could you share not only you know, just a little bit of your you know, background, whatever I left out, as well as what do you see some of the challenges and opportunities are as a female led company?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. So my background through this journey and merger of First Nation Group and the merger with Jordan Races, I'm a legacy Jordan Races employee. So that's how I came to be. I don't have an honorable title of working for the military, but much like you, Michelle, I'm a pseudo military brat, legacy military family. So I take great pride in working for a veteran-owned, woman-owned business. So again, lots of pride behind that. You know, I think some of the unique qualities for a military or a veteran-owned business goes back to some of those characteristics that I think are inherent in individuals that have served, and that is that selflessness. And I don't think there's a lot of individuals that serve their country that aren't selfless, and the sacrifices that it takes. And working with veterans and active duty military, which we have on our staff as well, you learn that that's very innate in who they are. And when we merged First Nation Group and Jordan Races, and Cheryl comments on really taking a capability and a vision and putting those together, it was extremely powerful in giving us a spotlight on purpose. And not that the purpose of serving was never with Jordan Races. Jordan Races always had a good heart to serve, but it was really making it a focal point of who we were and making it immersive in everything we did. So we talk about our business having 3 legs to our stool. We've got defensive posturing and offensive posturing, and we've got philanthropy. So when we come together as an organization to make big decisions or strategic advancements, it's really those 3 stools of that, legs of that stool that we have to make a conscious effort and think through. So I really appreciate the purpose that that merger brought to our organization, and it really made us stronger for that. And something that we now can leverage with our customers. We leverage that with our business development opportunities and partners. And so our philanthropic goals are a result of that. Our for-profit engine and our growth mindedness allows us to be the givers that we want to give. To address the question about the challenges for women-owned or even veteran-owned businesses, in my experience, I'm not sure they're much different than just having a business to begin with. It's challenging to be at the helm of a business, and it's not easy, or everybody would be doing it. But one thing that I've learned in working for a small business, woman-owned, veteran-owned business, is there is power in unity. And not only like-mindedness, but also those that challenge. And really finding that community of individuals to surround yourself with that will give you support, resources, good direction, good advice, also gives you a bigger voice. And something that I've professionally learned over the years is when you can come together with that community, your voice gets bigger and it gives you access points that you otherwise would not have had as a singular. So finding those coalition groups, the collaborative colleagues out there, much like us finding you, Michelle, years ago, and just saying, we don't know that there's anything there, but let's talk.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many of those discussions actually result in something good.
Yeah.
So it really makes a difference. And it also gives you access to those individuals and decision makers that maybe you otherwise would not have had.
Yeah, when I'd like you and Cheryl both, this was on one of our pre-questions, but it just came to me, your defense, offense, and philanthropy, three-legged stool. Can you kind of talk about what's included in that, in those pillars, and maybe Cheryl, you could talk about the defense, and since you're as from a lawyer standpoint, and then you both could kind of talk about the offense and philanthropy.
So I certainly will, but I'm going to prefer to talk to the philanthropic side since
Okay.
Wendy, because she's ops, and
Gotcha.
she's always in the defense and the offense, because both, you've got to grow, but you've always got somebody nipping at your heels. And but on the philanthropic side, we budget for philanthropy the same way as we budget for. We set goals on what we want to give, who we want to give to. We have a large committee that looks at things from a national level. We have these allocation buckets where we have national giving, we have local giving, because that's where we work. Remember, it was we give to veterans, military, and the underserved where we live and work. So we have the regional giving, and then we have individual giving done through an employee match, and we do that at 10-1. So we have groupings of allocations so that, for example, our sales force, they visit, there's 160 VAs around the country. They get to about a third of those every year as they are educated about products and whatnot. There is a group in every VA who is charged with enhancing the patient experience, the veterans experience, and they've gone much broader. They do homelessness and whatnot. And so, and that's the one place, there's not many places where a company or even an outsider can give money to the federal government. This is an exception. And it's like the women's sodality in a private hospital. It's a little organization. So they might have the popcorn stand or the coffee or something like that. So, and then probably our biggest focus is in adaptive sports. So we try to be leaders in the giving to the DAV, VA, and PVA in the summer clinics, which just finished in San Diego, the winter clinics that are out in Aspen, and it's the adaptive sports for all veterans, but there is a large, pretty focus on those veterans that came back from the post 9/11 wars, in effect, and in so those adaptive sports, I think I mentioned them all, plus the old Golden Age games, because you can't forget all those of us who are getting a little older, and there are many veterans from all wars and all times. So that's our philanthropics. Wow. And so Wendy, share with them the offensive and the defensive.
Yeah, it's really our tactics for business planning. And we do a lot of our business planning for an upcoming year in Q4. We run off a calendar year. So that would be our fall, last 3 months of the year. And when we think about our offensive, that is, you've got the ball and you're running with it. And we are looking at diversification. We are looking at expansion opportunities. And that may look like, new product lines, new partners. Is there a new lane line that we have interest in? And so that's a challenge to ourselves to make sure that we're staying relevant and that we're always meeting a need of our customer. So that's a value, right? Identifying that value prop and then building our business plan around it. And sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean something brand new. That might be putting extension onto something that we're already doing, putting a new face to it. Again, that relevance is really important, I think, to any business owner, business leader. The defensive side of that is the war room. And that's, that actually was brought to us by some of our military folks and saying, what happens when the sky falls? What are we going to do? And no one really wants to think about it, but every good business leader has to think about it. So that's when we sit down and think, who are our competitors? What is their MO? Is government procurement going to change? What are big industry hot topics? How are they going to impact us? And then that really mentality of change before you have to is our goal. We really like to stay ahead of the curve. Sometimes we don't get there because we don't have that great of a crystal ball, but being able to read tea leaves the best you possibly can is definitely something that we are skilled at. We spend a lot of time and focus there, and then developing the plan A, B, C, D, E, F, because half the time you're going through half those plans before you find one that's going to really work. But that mentality and proactive approach has allowed us to remain very agile. Wow. And has allowed us to stay in the game when I think some other companies may be faced with challenges that they think, ooh, it might be easier to throw in the towel. Right. So that's not something that we became real good at. We're still maybe not the best at it, but it is something that is on the plate and something that we spend a lot of time and focus on.
Well, what I hear is, from both you and Cheryl, is that you are always moving the needle, right? There's always progress, and I'm smiling because I hope the women veterans who are listening will realize, especially those who are in the startups, they think I'm going to start up and then it's going to be success and everything's okay. And so, I'm really glad to hear that. Let them hear your story about, despite how successful you are, you still got to stay in it. You still got to remain relevant. You still got to look at your competitors. You still got to look at the, landscape and environment and say, how can we best position ourselves for success? And, and having said that, what advice would you give to aspiring women, veteran-owned businesses or women-owned businesses? And either one of you can start first.
So I'll give it a start. Wendy, we'll have a lot of ideas too. I think you pointed out that resiliency that you need. So starting or being an entrepreneur or having a business is very, very difficult. There are so many forces to set you back and put you down. So all of the basics, the skills, the money, the knowing the finances, the understanding of your products or your services or who wants them, relevance, that's an everyday event. And so get the skills you have them from the military, might be an employee for a company for a while to see how you would do it and learn those things. Resiliency, the right team. I'm going to hand it over to Wendy because there is no magic formula and it's just really tough going.
Yeah. I would add, I think we already hit on this, which is just really find your purpose. Find that purpose and what you hope and wish to accomplish. We don't make business plans on hopes and wishes. That's what I'm asked a question. I say, well, I hope. Well, we can't hope in business. We have to have a plan. But with a solid purpose and a value structure that you can build around that, but Cheryl hit it. It's that team. It's your tribe. It's your community. I would say don't be afraid to connect to someone else. We're talking about a merger between Jordan Races and First Nation Group, two very different organizations, but came together and wow, we are better for it. And we are so happy about it. So I would say, don't be fearful of having to look into others and partner in ways that are outside of the box, because many times it's going to get you to that outcome that you're looking for. So Cheryl's the military, the VO, I'm not, but we've got a really good collaborative team and a very diverse team that works together from a diverse skill set. So don't be averse to that. Don't feel like you have to do it on your own. It's a lot to burden when you're singular.
Well, I want to circle back on this merger because, not that many companies that I engage are talking about merger officially, but they're always scared when it comes to teaming, right? They're always like apprehensive because they've been done wrong or they've, I call it, not had great experiences with subbing either in a relationship or the financial piece. What advice would you give, especially on that? Because there's not every conversation is about, I know I need to expand my capability and my capacity, but they're scared. And I tease them and tell them, date around, don't marry quick. But I'd love to hear from you all.
Go ahead.
Sharon.
No, go ahead.
It's in my world and through my experience, it's the walk before you run. It's the crawl before you walk. When we look at new partners, we actually call it courting. It's something that as you are exploring relationships, there is a high level of responsibility there. You've got to have trust in that commitment. And it's not something that is necessarily gained overnight. So there are ways to team or to partner without doing a merger acquisition. So if it's something that is of interest and a partner there, I would encourage individuals to seek out ways that are low-hanging fruit that you can just get used to working with one another. And that's something that we do. That is part of our growth structure. We have interest in looking at M&As, but we also have interest in just looking at good partners where our synergies come together, bring another solution for our customer that we can't do by ourselves. So start small, start low hanging fruit, and just see if it's a good working relationship and give it some time. You can grow from there. It doesn't have to be an M&A or a merger. And actually, the merger with First Nation Group and Jordan Races started as a crawl. It started as a courting. And it was trying to figure out how and why that fit would work. And it didn't happen overnight. It was a couple years in the making before it was formalized. So it is not a quick turn the switch, but crawl before you walk, before you run.
And I couldn't say it any better. And I empathize with all of your constituents, Michelle, because these actual teaming is very just teaming. I say just a teaming, even for us. And we're quite experienced in it because we've done it our whole post-military life in other industries. But the smaller you are, the harder it is because it's easy to be taken advantage of and you don't know where you stand and whatnot. And so it's very difficult. And so Wendy, and this has been our philosophy on, and so we partner on the little things, we're partnering on the philanthropic things, we're getting to know each other. So doing a little bit more and expand that way.
So I think, I think that was very insightful, the understanding that there is a process and that it's not like you get that process right one time and then it works. It's so dynamic, right? Based on who you're engaging with, what you're dealing with. So, you all being so successful, I know this is, demanding being a successful business, being one of the largest vendors and suppliers to VA. How do you balance running the business, running a nonprofit, and then having your personal life?
So I'll jump in. We both have, well, what we have in common is we married well. We have saints for husbands, and I know you do too. Where those guys came from, I think they broke the mold. I have Saint Mark. She has very saintly Rick. But over and above that, one of the things I've found in the last 10 years with First Nation Group is because we have been able to work as a team. Families, you've got to find the balance, and the families are, and the spouses are instrumental to that balance. And we have to juggle it all, but we do have this business to run. And I find that I've found certainly in the last 10 years, when you have a strong team, people are willing to just pick up. You need to go and do us something. Somebody will pick up. And so you work together. It's like a neighborhood. It's like a family pick up where the others left off. So it's really important to all of us. One, we all value families. We've all been fortunate enough, the leadership with the very long marriages, good, solid things. And so we know what it takes. So I think that give and take among us, strong leadership group, but we see it in the warehouse too. Everybody's kind of pitching in, and otherwise it's just, if you're taking all of it on, if I had to do it all myself, I wouldn't have no balance. I probably wouldn't have a life. So, I mean, we depend on each other for that. And so, Wendy?
Yeah, that
Your
recharging.
husbands, are the saints involved in the business as well?
So my saint was my first employee, and the best day of his life when he was fired. He yeah, no,
I love it. I love it.
I hear of some who do it. He just was a good sport to get me started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
it.
and
Sorry, Wendy,
yeah,
I didn't.
and likewise, my poor husband's been pulled in. He's a Mr. Fix-It of everything. So when we need something, he comes in to do it, and then I'm like, we need separation. We need the work balance of private life separate. But no, definitely, we have amazing support systems, both professionally and personally, and that makes a difference. That recharging time is so very important in order for us to have our own passions outside of work. I think this topic for probably everybody on this call is probably one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah.
It's really easy to live, eat, breathe what you're doing because we are passionate people, or we would not be in these roles and taking these challenges on like we are. I also believe that us as leaders set an expectation and a standard for our teams and our staff that we have. That is definitely a top-down visual optics for the team. And I've worked for leaders in past lives where it's the go, go, go all the time. And then you believe that yourself, you're expected to do that, even if that's not the case. So I really think it's a responsibility as business leaders to set that expectation of my passions outside of work need to have time and attention. And that's my family, and that's my philanthropy, and other hobbies and interests that I have. So one thing that we have done within the organization is we've initiated a PTO policy which is, it's a very nice PTO policy with gracious amounts of time and holiday time, but we want them to take the time. So we give you the time to be used within a year because we expect it to be taken. So we've really kind of moved away from some of these rollovers, which I think in some cases people like that. But our expectation is take the time because we think you need it and your family wants you to take it.
Yeah.
In addition, with a lot of these events that we have, company events, which may look like a holiday party, it could be a day of service over Veterans Day, we really try our best to include the families and make them times of day and on days that it would be easy for children or spouses who maybe aren't working on those days to come in and participate with us. So it's that family immersion style that we have when it makes sense for our business.
Beautiful. Well, one other part of, balance is, do you have female support groups? Like
So
CEO roundtables, or,
mhm.
I don't know. They call them different things, but just interested to find out, who do you have each other to look to, but are there other groups that you engage in? And if so, what are some of them?
So if you take that, first of all, the company, we're more women than we are men. So we're
Wow.
40, so we're 51% or better than that. Women, and over 25% are in the senior leadership group. So if anybody needs support, it's those men, because we're pretty strong-willed about all this. So they probably need the safe room. But what we have tried to do in the content, and even more so, really focused on getting time together. If post-COVID, we're now much more, we've always been distributed group, but we had 3 very kind of larger offices. Now we just have 2, and some are still working remote. So we try to bring people together, not by gender necessarily or whatnot, but by interests. We have a gym in each office, so those who want to get together and work out, or again, in the philanthropic things, where there's a variety of philanthropic things that you can do, and you would then do it with others in the company, like if it was these sports, or it might be with healing dogs or something like that. So you can gather like that together. And we've been trying to bring people closer together more than just, on the Zoom, because we do a lot of this. So not so much by gender, but by interest levels, because the more we get to know each other and have a chance to exchange, one of the things they've started down at, we call it a Medicus, but it's our biggest warehouse. President of the company, he cooks for everybody there. And the first time, nobody knows each other too well. Second time, now I think we're on our fourth or fifth time. And it's a big fun event and things like that. So that's why we try to focus
That's
on
awesome.
just getting together.
Right.
And like I say, we're only 90, and half of those are not coming to the office because there's sales or something like that.
Yeah.
So something like that.
So we're at almost 10, 12 till the hour. Would you like to, let's see, do we have any questions? I don't know if we don't have any questions. Does anybody have any questions? If we have questions, we'll take those. If not, I've got plenty. But let's go ahead, and I would like to ask you while we're waiting to see if anybody puts anything in the chat. I know some people are just listening, they're not able to. But if you would put your question in the chat and remain off video if you would, please. I saw somebody pop up on video. Okay, I'm going to ask, what are some of the goals? So the last question I'm going to ask before we go into possibly one question is, what are some of the future goals and aspiration for First Nation group, and how do you plan to continue impacting the community? I know you're going to do it. Wendy said we don't stop, and you're like, hey, we got to serve more. So no surprise.
Yeah. Yeah.
So ask almost anybody in the leadership in First Nation group, what is our goal? And that's to be doing what we're doing in perpetuity. We're not looking to be sold or make the big pot of gold. What our idea is, as long as we are providing a great service to the VA and the federal government in terms of our for-profit side, and we're living out our mission, we hope to continue on. And the words are in perpetuity. And somebody says, that's a long time. That's a
long
That
time.
is, and that's a legal term, I believe.
yeah. And so
Awesome.
And
well,
shared with me, I said, well, what do you think on this question? Because this was one of our prep questions. And she says, she would like to continue to be contagious. And that is
that.
fun. It's a good word. It's one of those things where we are so happy with where we are. And we hope our people in our company are happy, that we will then spread it then to our partners and to anyone, and certainly anybody that's participating on that call that wants to know anything about what we do or how we do it. This is what we hope to do in the future for a long time.
That's amazing. I'm just so honored to have the time with you. Doesn't look like we have questions, but I want to give you an opportunity. Antoine, if you would go bring up the slide with their quotes on it, and give you the opportunity for some final comments. Might be a little delay here, but this has been absolutely fun hearing more about you, who you are, kind of seeing a little bit under the tent, as they would say, a peek under the tent to see, what's behind the dynamic duo. Go all the way to the slide, parting words of wisdom. Yes, please. Thank you. Wendy, if we're going to have you go first.
Sure, absolutely. a firm believer, everybody should have a motto, a philosophy, a phrase, or a something. For me, it's a scripture. And for me, it's very personal. It's, I take what I do very seriously. I think it's a very big responsibility, not only for the mission that we have at hand, but for our staff, and making sure that that for-profit engine continues to just chug away so that we can fuel this great mission to give back to the underserved in the communities where we live and where we work. So for me, this scripture is one that I can reflect on, not too often, but when things get challenging and when things maybe take a detour or a change that we're not expecting, it's, you've got to pull yourself back up. You've got to knock the dirt off, chin up, and let's go find the silver lining. And that is something that just keeps me going, because there's a bigger purpose behind what we're doing than checking in and checking out every day. So I, again, encourage everybody to go find that little something out there that is a great reminder of why you're doing what you're doing.
I want to thank you for joining us. That's powerful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Ms. Cheryl, next
So-
slide.
So I have a couple of these little short quips on my taped on my computer screen, and one is work hard and let the outcomes up to him. And it's another way of saying let go and let God. It's one of these things that you're back into the corner. You can only do so much, and the outcomes may not be what you expect or you hope or you're working towards, but that isn't something you get to control. So each day when I feel like, ooh, this is it's not going the way I expected, I hope to take that and build that outcome into, in effect, more work, more effort. And so it'll become the outcome that is meant to be in his honor, or however one would phrase it. But if I worried about the outcomes, I'm afraid I would lose heart in working for it. So this one speaks to me almost every day.
That is beautiful. I want to thank you, Ms. Cheryl, as well, for joining us, both of you. Next slide. I think we've got the next slide is I thought there was a poll, but a poll question. Did we put the poll questions up? I just wanted to say, thank you both for your service. I want to thank all of our, women veterans. I think First Nation, I know First Nations is an example of beyond the uniform, right? What it looks like to transition well, from military service to entrepreneurship. Our theme today, I think it was so appropriate for First Nation and who they are. The themes to me are about service, leadership, legacy, and I love the offense, defense, and philanthropic efforts. That's amazing. As women veteran businesses have become a vital part of the economy, the statistics show that women veteran businesses hire more women and veterans when they create jobs. They're innovative and they're involved in the community. I believe the Integration Act, the Women Armed Services Integration Act, has really played a pivotal role to giving us the opportunity, because I know I couldn't imagine what I would be doing now if I had not gotten all of the experience that I had in the military, and if we had not integrated, those opportunities would not have been would not have been possible. So entrepreneurship is something that I believe is an opportunity for women veterans to determine their own success, right? What does that look like? It could be 200,000, 2 million, 200 million, or 2 billion. And so, you know, I know that these ladies have inspired you. They've inspired me. You know, they've paved the way, and they've shown that you can have service, you can have legacy, and you can exercise your leadership and impact not only the people that work in your company, but also your community. You know, women veterans are this nation's untapped national treasure and a top secret weapon. I believe that with all my heart. Next slide. I do want to encourage you all to join us, empower and educate, enable your success. Join us on the 4th Wednesday of every month, or every Tuesday from 12 to 1 p.m. with our Vet Biz Lady office hours. Please, I would like to extend the invitation to Ms. Cheryl and Ms. Wendy. I would love to have you come and answer some questions. Next slide is just some OSDBU resources. But again, I want to thank you for joining us. It's been such a great opportunity to get to know Ms. Cheryl and Ms. Wendy even more, but more importantly, for them to show you how it can be done regardless of how successful you are. Resilience, leadership, service is just, it doesn't stop, right? Just because you win a contract doesn't mean the rest is smooth. Thank you for your service, not only to this nation, but want to thank you for your continued service to the VA and enabling our great mission of healthcare. And thank you for all that you're doing in the community.
Thanks for having us, Michelle.
All right.
Thanks for
We'll
having us.
see you later. Thank you, everybody, for joining. God bless and have an amazing week.